The Galactic Exchange Program Disaster. A bold experiment gone wrong. The Galactic Council had always prided itself on being the most intelligent governing body in the known universe. Made up of representatives from thousands of advanced civilizations, they had managed to maintain peace and order for millennia. However, history had proven one undeniable truth. Sometimes, the most brilliant minds come up with the absolute worst ideas. The Cultural Exchange Initiative of 2157 was meant to be a peaceful project, designed to foster unity between species. The goal was simple. Young individuals from different species would be swapped and raised temporarily on alien worlds, learning about each other's ways of life, forging bonds of friendship, and ensuring future generations saw one another as allies, not enemies. It sounded perfect on paper. In reality, it was a disaster waiting to happen. The exchange system was based on a complex AI logistics algorithm that matched children with the most compatible societies. The problem: the AI had never worked with humans before. It had no baseline understanding of how fragile or resilient they truly were. Somewhere in the massive bureaucratic nightmare of planetary assignments, a critical error was made. Instead of being placed in a safe diplomatic exchange program on a peaceful alien world, a group of 10 human children, ranging from ages 8 to 14, was sent to one of the most brutal, elite military academies in the galaxy. The Rutherian War Academy, a place designed to train the deadliest warriors in the universe, a place where failure meant death. Arrival on a hostile world. The transport ship carrying the children descended onto the war-scarred planet of Catherix, home of the Rutherians, a species known for their immense strength, towering height, and complete lack of mercy. These warriors had fought in galactic conflicts for over 10,000 years, and their academy was notorious for producing only the strongest survivors. For Rutherians, childhood was a battle. Their young underwent brutal combat training as early as age 5. By 10, they had already mastered weapons. By 14, they had fought in live war simulations. So when the transport doors opened and 10 small, wide-eyed human children stepped out into the harsh, dust-filled atmosphere of Catherix, the instructors laughed. "You must be joking." One of the Rutherian war generals scoffed, towering over the confused Earth children. His second-in-command, a battle-scarred female warrior named Commander Xelrath, snarled in disgust. "Are these the diplomats? They are weak, fragile, useless." The children, still clutching their backpacks, stood in awkward silence. They had no idea what was going on. Among them was Sam Carter, 13 years old, who had been expecting to go on a cool space school adventure, not end up in what looked like a military boot camp for giant alien death machines. His friend, Mia Rodriguez, 12, nudged him, whispering, Sam, I don't think this is the right place." The Rutherian officers were already talking about sending them back, but the problem was bureaucracy. The Galactic Council, in its infinite wisdom, had signed an ironclad agreement. Once assigned, exchange students could not be transferred for one full standard year. The human children were stuck, thrown into the fire. From the moment they arrived, it became clear they were expected to train like any other cadet. The first test, a combat evaluation. They were thrown into an open battle pit against other Rutherian younglings, who were 3 times their size and already trained in advanced combat techniques. The instructors assumed the humans would fail instantly, allowing them to be dismissed from the program. They were wrong. Humanity's hidden strength. At first, the children were outmatched in every possible way. The Rutherians were faster, stronger, and more aggressive. Sam barely dodged a massive hammer-like fist from a Rutherian teen, rolling to the side and gasping for air. Mia had been knocked down twice already, and Connor, the youngest at 8 years old, was desperately trying to crawl away from a 7-foot-tall alien wielding a training spear. The instructors watched, amused. But then, something changed. Humans adapt. Sam noticed something crucial. The Rutherians were predictable. They relied on strength and brute force, but their movements were slow compared to human reflexes. The next time a Rutherian charged, Sam ducked, causing his opponent to stumble forward. Mia kicked the back of his knee, sending him crashing to the ground. Connor, realizing he was too small to fight head-on, started using the environment. He dodged attacks by rolling under obstacles, forcing his opponents to tire themselves out. By the end of the match, none of the humans had won, but they had lasted longer than expected. Commander Axelrath, who had been watching closely, narrowed her reptilian eyes. They are weak, but they learn. That night, the human children sat together in their cramped barracks, exhausted, bruised, and terrified. "We won't survive this," one of the younger kids, Emma, whispered. "They're too strong." Sam clenched his fists. "Then we get stronger." The road to legend begins. The next few weeks were hell. The Rutherian instructors pushed them beyond their limits. Endurance runs across burning deserts, hand-to-hand combat drills against creatures twice their size, and mind-breaking strategy tests meant to weed out the weak. But humans had something no one in the galaxy understood yet: endurance, creativity, the ability to adapt under pressure. Slowly, they stopped losing as badly. Then, they started winning small battles. They learned to outthink their opponents, using tactics no Rutherian had ever considered: ambushes, feints, teamwork, improvisation. By the end of the first month, the instructors were no longer laughing. By the end of the second month, whispers spread among the cadets. By the third month, the human children had earned respect. They were no longer a joke. They were something else. A warning to the galaxy. 6 months later, a Galactic Council observer arrived to check on the program. Expecting to find broken, defeated human children, he instead witnessed something that sent chills down his spine. He watched Sam and Mia take down a Rutherian warrior twice their size using perfect coordination. He watched Connor execute a flanking maneuver that forced 5 opponents into a trap. He watched human children, once seen as weak, outmaneuver an entire squad of elite warriors. The observer turned to Commander Axelrath, his voice uneasy. What have you done?" She smirked, crossing her arms. "We trained them." And across the stars, for the first time in history, the galaxy began to fear what humans could become. The impossible training begins. The breaking point. The first month had been sheer hell. Every muscle in Sam's body ached as he limped through the barracks. His uniform, more like a crude, armored bodysuit, was tattered, dirt-covered, and still stained with the greenish-black blood of a sparring session gone wrong. But he was still standing. They all were. He looked around at the others. Mia was nursing a swollen wrist, Connor had a deep cut above his brow, and Emma's lip was busted. Yet, despite the bruises, despite the exhaustion, despite the fact that they had been thrown into an alien nightmare meant to break them, not a single one had quit. But that was exactly what the instructors wanted. Commander Axelrath stood at the front of the barracks, arms crossed, her reptilian eyes scanning the group with cold calculation. "Congratulations, humans," she said, her voice like steel scraping against stone. "You have survived 1 month of training. That is more than I expected." The cadets around them, all towering Rutherian warriors in training, chuckled under their breath. To them, these human children were an amusing side experiment, tiny, fragile things playing soldier. That amusement would soon vanish. Axelrath's voice turned sharp. "But survival is not enough," she continued. "Survival is the bare minimum of existence. If you wish to remain here, if you wish to be warriors, you will need to do much more than survive." She stepped forward, her gaze piercing into Sam's eyes. "You will need to become something more." And with that, the real training began. The gauntlet of hell. The next phase of training was something the Rutherians called the Crucible. No human translation quite captured the horror of it. The Crucible was not a test. It was war. It was 10 days of non-stop trials, designed to break even the most battle-hardened warriors. Day 1. The Acid Lands. The cadets were dropped into the wastes of Sulkar, a brutal volcanic wasteland filled with superheated rock, deadly sulfur storms, and rivers of semi-acidic sludge that could eat through most armor. The objective: find shelter, secure rations, and survive the night. By sunset, 4 Rutherians had collapsed from exhaustion. All 10 humans remained standing. Day 2. The Predator Hunt. The cadets were thrown into the Virexian wilds, a jungle moon where the air was thick with moisture and deadly creatures lurked in the shadows. They were given nothing but a blade and ordered to bring back proof of a kill before dawn. The Rutherians, with their brute strength and sharp claws, relied on direct combat. The humans, they relied on their minds. By dawn, every single human had a kill. Connor, the youngest, had set a trap using vines and bait, bringing down a Virexian shadow beast, a creature twice his size. The instructors were stunned. Zero-gravity warfare. A training simulation placed them in a space station's combat zone. Zero gravity, no oxygen, no mercy. The Rutherians struggled to adapt to the lack of footing, their size working against them in the weightless void. Humans, however, were used to improvisation. Sam figured out how to use momentum and small thrusters to turn weightlessness into an advantage. By the end of the trial, 3 human cadets had outperformed every single alien competitor. And then, the real test came. The trial of the vanquished. On day 7, the cadets were summoned to the main combat pit, where the high-ranking warlords observed from the towering cliffs above. Zelarath addressed them with cold efficiency. In war, there are no rules. Her voice echoed across the massive arena. Today, you will fight, and you will kill. A metal gate opened. From the darkness stepped an enemy. A Moksharian warlord, one of the Rutherians' greatest rivals, stood before them. Towering, monstrous, covered in scarred exoskeleton armor, and wielding a plasma glaive, the Moksharian let out a guttural snarl. Zelarath turned to the cadets. One of you must kill him ***. The Rutherian cadets hesitated. This wasn't a simulation. This was real. Failure meant death. But before any of them could react, a human stepped forward. Mia, the youngest girl in the group, the smallest, the weakest by all accounts. The aliens laughed. Then Mia did something that made the entire war camp go silent. She smiled. And then she attacked. The moment humanity became fearsome, Mia didn't charge head-on. She knew that would be suicide. Instead, she ran low, zigzagging as the Moksharian swung its massive glaive. Sparks flew as the weapon sliced inches from her head. She rolled, dodged, leaped. The Rutherians, watching from the sidelines, saw something they had never witnessed before. Speed, precision, unpredictability. The Moksharian lunged, but Mia was already gone. She leaped onto its back, using her smaller size to her advantage. And then, with ruthless efficiency, she plunged a blade straight into the soft spot of its neck. The warlord collapsed. Dead. Silence. Then, chaos. The Rutherians were shouting, half in disbelief, half in awe. Zelarath stepped forward, staring at the fallen Moksharian, then at the tiny human girl standing over its corpse, covered in alien blood. Slowly, the commander grinned. "Congratulations," she said, her voice filled with something no Rutherian had ever associated with a human before. Respect. And from that moment on, the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The turning point. By the time the crucible ended, only 30 cadets remained. All 10 humans were still standing. The Rutherians had always believed strength was what defined a warrior. But now, they saw the truth. Humans were different. Humans were relentless. And when pushed to the brink, humans would always find a way to survive. They weren't just another species anymore. They were something else. Something terrifying. And across the stars, whispers of the human cadets began to spread. Whispers of the impossible training. Whispers of warriors who did not fear death. And for the first time, the greatest warriors in the galaxy began to fear the rise of humanity, outsmarting the galaxy's best. The weight of expectation. The crucible had changed everything. The humans were no longer a joke. They were a problem. Word of their survival had spread across the academy. Whispers echoed in dark corners of the barracks, alien cadets speaking in hushed, uneasy voices. How had these tiny, fragile beings outlasted them in the crucible? How had they managed to outthink and outfight species that had dominated war for thousands of years? Even among the Rutherian officers, debates rage. Some wanted the humans removed. They were an anomaly, an unpredictable factor that no one had accounted for. Others, like Commander Accelerath, saw something else. Potential. And in a galaxy where war was the natural state of being, potential was dangerous. The trials of strategy. The next phase of training wasn't about brute force. It was about war. Rutherian cadets weren't just trained to fight. They were trained to command armies, to lead fleets, to outmaneuver enemies across entire star systems. And now, for the first time, the human cadets would be placed into tactical war simulations against the best and brightest strategists the Academy had ever produced. It was supposed to be a lesson in humility. It turned into a lesson in fear. The first simulation, the impossible war. Sam Carter stood at the center of the war room, staring at the holographic battlefield projected before him. On one side, a fleet of human ships, barely holding together, outnumbered 10-1. On the other, the might of the Galactic Dominion, simulated to mirror real-life battle strategies. The objective was simple: survive for 30 minutes. The simulation started. The aliens smirked. The humans grinned. And then everything changed. The art of chaos. Sam wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a warrior. He was a kid from Earth. A kid who had spent years playing strategy games, studying military history, and thinking outside the rigid structures of traditional warfare. The Rutherians. They fought with honor. They fought with strength. They fought with tradition. Humans. Humans fought dirty, breaking the rules of war. 5 minutes into the simulation, the Rutherian officers leaned forward in their seats. 10 minutes in, the observers were silent. 15 minutes in, they realized what was happening. Sam wasn't playing by their rules. Instead of engaging the enemy head-on, he used the environment. Asteroids became shields. Gas clouds became traps. Artificial debris fields became mines. He split his forces, using hit-and-run tactics to break apart the larger fleet. At minute 25, the enemy admiral, one of the most advanced AI war systems in the galaxy, made a desperate move, trying to overwhelm him with sheer numbers. At minute 28, the Dominion fleet collapsed. At minute 30, the impossible happened. Sam had won. The aliens in the room sat in stunned silence. Commander Xelrath turned to her fellow officers, eyes glinting with something that looked almost like excitement. We have underestimated them. For the first time, the galaxy saw what happened when humans were allowed to think. And they were afraid. The mind games begin. The victories didn't stop there. Every time the humans were placed in a new simulation, they adapted. Maya used psychological warfare, faking weaknesses to bait enemies into overextending themselves. Connor, the youngest, created ambush tactics that forced superior forces into choke points. Emma rewrote battle doctrine, using stealth and deception in ways no one had ever seen before. The Rutherian strategists, leaders who had fought for centuries, who had studied the art of war for their entire lives, were being outmaneuvered by children. It was unheard of. It was terrifying. And the whispers that had begun in the barracks were now echoing across the entire galaxy. The unseen threat. The problem wasn't just that the humans were winning. The problem was that they weren't supposed to. The galaxy had been at war for millennia, fought between predictable factions, using predictable strategies, following predictable rules. Humans had no rules. They fought in ways no one had ever considered. They used everything, every weakness, every mistake, every overlooked detail, to their advantage. And the worst part, they were only getting better. A dangerous proposition. The Galactic Council was beginning to pay attention. High-ranking officials were receiving classified reports about the human cadets. Some wanted them studied. Some wanted them controlled. And some, the ones who understood war better than anyone, wanted them eliminated. Zelrath saw the writing on the wall. The humans were no longer just students. They were a threat. And in a galaxy where power was everything, threats didn't last long. Which meant the humans needed to move fast. Because war wasn't coming. It was already here. And for the first time in history, it was the humans who had the upper hand. The battle that changed everything. The day everything fell apart. The warning came at 400 Galactic Standard Time. A distress beacon screamed across the comm channels. Its signal raw, broken, desperate. An unidentified fleet had entered orbit. But it wasn't just any fleet. It was Dominion. The Galactic Dominion, the greatest military empire in the known universe, had just breached Rutherian space. And it wasn't a diplomatic visit. By the time the first alarm sounded, the sky was burning. No way out. The Rutherian War Academy was one of the most heavily defended military installations in the sector. No one had ever dared attack it. Until now. From the windows of the barracks, Sam could see the distant flashes of energy cannons firing into the night sky. The horizon was a battlefield, and the air was thick with the scent of burning metal and ionized plasma. Everyone up. Commander Zelrath's voice thundered through the barracks. This is not a drill. We are under attack. Sam, Mia, Connor, and the rest of the human cadets were already moving. Their training had been brutal, relentless, designed to forge warriors out of nothing. Now they had to prove that training had meant something. The alien cadets were panicked. Most had never seen real war before. They had trained for it, yes, but the reality of an actual invasion was a different kind of nightmare. The human children. They were terrified. But they weren't frozen. Because humans didn't freeze when faced with death. They fought. The first shots fired. Get to the command bunker, Zelrath ordered, shoving past a Rutherian soldier who had collapsed in shock. We need tow. Boom. An explosion ripped through the eastern wall of the academy. The entire barracks trembled as debris rained down like meteorites. Sam pulled Connor out of the way just in time as a massive steel beam crashed where he had been standing. Through the smoke and flames, they saw them. Dominion shock troopers. They moved in formation, clad in jet-black battle armor, their red visors glowing in the night. Energy rifles hummed in their hands, locked and ready. The first shot fired was aimed directly at Mia. She ducked, rolling behind an overturned supply crate just as a plasma round tore through the air. We need weapons, Sam yelled. Zelrath was already moving. With me. Armory. Now. Outgunned, outnumbered, outmatched. The armory was 5 minutes away. They had 3. The Dominion moved fast. Their invasion was not a traditional siege. It was an execution. The Rutherians were scrambling to mount a defense, but they hadn't expected an attack here. The academy had been a place of learning, not war. For once, the humans had the advantage. Because humans had spent their whole lives doing what the Rutherians had never needed to do, surviving the unexpected. The resistance begins. By the time they reached the armory, chaos had taken over. Alien cadets were being cut down in the halls. Some were trying to fight back. Others were simply running. Zelrath tore open a weapons locker, throwing rifles to anyone who could hold one. Sam grabbed a compact plasma pistol, feeling its heat hum against his palm. He had never held a real weapon before. Now, it was the only thing keeping him alive. Mia armed herself with a pulse rifle. The recoil nearly knocked her over, but she steadied herself. Connor found a shock baton, light, fast, and perfect for someone who wasn't strong enough to go head-to-head with an armored trooper. They had weapons. Now they needed a plan. Fighting smarter, not harder. The Rutherian officers were trying to organize defenses, but they were fighting a war they didn't understand. The Dominion wasn't playing by the rules. They weren't engaging in honorable combat. They were wiping everything out. Sam saw it immediately, and he realized something else. The Dominion wasn't here to conquer. They were here to eliminate the human cadets. This wasn't a war. This was a preemptive strike, a plan no one expected. "We need to get to the main control tower," Sam said, breathing hard. Zelarath looked at him like he was insane. "You want to run toward the most heavily fortified part of the academy? That's suicide. Not if we shut down the station's gravity well." Zelarath's eyes narrowed. The academy had a planetary defense system, a gravity well projector that kept enemy ships from escaping or entering hyperspace. If they disabled it, the Rutherians could call for reinforcements. But more importantly, so could the humans. Zelarath hesitated. Then she did something no one expected. She nodded. "Then let's move." The assault on the control tower. Fighting through the academy halls was hell. The Dominion troopers were trained for urban warfare, using tight formations, suppressive fire, and overwhelming force to crush any resistance. But the humans fought like guerrillas. Mia took out 2 soldiers by blasting a gas pipe, filling the hall with smoke. Connor used his shock baton to disable a patrol unit without being detected. Emma hacked into a Dominion drone, turning it against its own soldiers. Every second they survived, the Dominion forces grew more frustrated. By the time they breached the control room, the battle had shifted. It wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about sending a message. The moment that shook the galaxy. Sam rushed to the control terminal, his fingers flying over the alien interface. The system was encrypted, locked down. But humans were good at breaking things. With a few keystrokes, he overrode the system, disabling the gravity well. A single transmission was sent across the stars. "This is Cadet Sam Carter of the Human Exchange Program. The Rutherian War Academy is under attack by Dominion forces. We need immediate reinforcements. Coordinates attached." Then he looked at Mia. "Are you ready?" She nodded. Sam hit the final command. Across the battlefield, every Rutherian defensive cannon came online. Turrets swiveled toward the Dominion invaders. And the war truly began. The aftermath. By the time Rutherian reinforcements arrived, the battle was over. The Dominion had been forced to retreat, but they hadn't been defeated. This had just been the beginning. As Sam stood in the rubble, watching burning ships crash into the horizon, he knew one thing for certain. The galaxy had just changed forever. And it was because of them. Galactic recognition and the legends begin. After the fire, the ashes, the Rutherian War Academy was in ruins. Thick plumes of smoke curled toward the alien sky, mixing with the faint glow of burning wreckage. The acrid scent of scorched metal and ionized plasma hung heavy in the air. Bodies, both Dominion and Rutherian, were being collected and moved to the side, some still smoking from the heat of battle. But the humans, they were alive. Somehow, against all odds, they had survived. Not only had they survived, they had won. And that, more than anything, was what terrified the rest of the galaxy. The debriefing that changed everything. 3 days later, Sam, Mia, Connor, and the rest of the human cadets found themselves standing before the Galactic Council. They had been escorted off-world, taken to a high-security space station orbiting the neutral world of Rix 9. The council chamber was massive, a domed room lined with floating holoscreens and tiered seating filled with representatives from every major civilization. At the center of it all, a circular podium. That's where they stood now. 10 human children, facing the leaders of the known universe. A cold voice echoed through the chamber. You understand why you are here, do you not? The speaker was High Chancellor Varkol, a towering insectoid alien whose species, the Zurith Dominion, had once ruled half the galaxy. Sam swallowed hard but held his ground. Because we fought back. The Chancellor's compound eyes narrowed. Because you won. The greatest threat in the galaxy. The council representatives began speaking among themselves in rapid bursts of their respective languages. Some sounded angry. Others sounded afraid. Finally, a voice cut through the noise. We need to talk about what happens next. The speaker was Ambassador Rautel of the Thrin Republic. She turned toward the humans, her golden eyes unreadable. Your presence in this war academy was an accident, a bureaucratic mistake. And yet, despite being outnumbered, outgunned, and undertrained, you fought off an invasion force that was meant to wipe out an entire installation. She leaned forward. That should have been impossible. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The cold truth had been laid bare for all to see. Humans had done the impossible. And if they could do it once, they could do it again. The debate, allies or enemies. The argument that followed was chaos. One side of the council saw the humans as a valuable asset. We have underestimated this species for too long, growled General Karoth of the Ritharian High Command. Their adaptability is unlike anything we have ever encountered. Imagine what they could accomplish if we trained them properly. But others, those who had once ruled unchecked, saw something else. This is a warning, not an opportunity, countered Governor Vrax of the Dominion. These creatures, these humans, are not meant for war. And yet, in less than a year, they have begun to rival the greatest warriors in the galaxy. His voice grew sharp. We cannot allow this to continue. That was when Commander Accelerath spoke. She had been silent until now, standing at the back of the chamber, her arms crossed. Now she stepped forward, her reptilian eyes glinting with something dangerous. You are afraid of them. The room fell silent. Zelrath looked at each of the council members, her expression hard. You are not debating their potential. You are debating your own fear. Her voice was calm, controlled, deadly. These humans have fought beside us. They have bled beside us. And when the time came, they did not run. They stood. She turned to the High Chancellor. And if you are wise, you will not make the mistake of standing against them. For a long moment, there was silence. Then the vote began. The decision. It took less than an hour. The decision was unanimous. The humans were no longer just exchange students. They were warriors. And the galaxy would never underestimate them again. But not everyone was happy about the outcome. In the shadows of the council chambers, unseen forces were already moving. Not everyone wanted humans to become a recognized military power. Some wanted them gone. For good. The legends begin. The humans were officially inducted into the Galactic Coalition Military Academy. They were given ranks, resources, training, and more importantly, they were given missions. They weren't just students anymore. They were operatives. And across the stars, the whispers began to spread. The humans are coming. They don't break. They don't stop. They don't lose. The Dominion had tried to erase them. Now, the humans had been given a seat at the table. But some wondered, would they stop there? Or have the galaxy just made a mistake it could never undo? The ultimate test of humanity, the burden of recognition. Being recognized by the Galactic Coalition Military Academy was supposed to be an honor, a historic moment. The first time humans had been acknowledged as something more than a primitive species in a universe filled with war-hardened empires. But in reality, it was a death sentence. The moment the humans were granted official military status, everything changed. They weren't just students anymore. They were pieces on the galactic chessboard. And every major power was watching them. Some with curiosity, some with fear, and some with murderous intent. The first mission, a war they weren't supposed to win. It came faster than anyone expected. A distant colony world, one barely known to the galactic community, had sent out a distress signal. A border skirmish had erupted between the Rutherian Empire and an unknown faction calling itself the Vraxis Syndicate. At first, it seemed like a simple battle over territory, but something wasn't right. The Dominion, the very same empire that had tried to exterminate the humans, had been suspiciously silent. They weren't supporting the Rutherians. They weren't intervening. They were just waiting. Which meant one thing. This wasn't a war. It was a test. And the humans were the ones being tested. The drop into hell. The briefing was short. Your mission is to provide support. Hold the front line until reinforcements arrive. Simple. Too simple. Sam knew it. Mia knew it. Connor, Emma, and the rest of the human squad all knew it. This wasn't about holding a position. This was about proving whether humans were actually worth keeping alive. They were being thrown onto a battlefield no one expected them to survive. And if they failed, the galaxy would never give them another chance. They would be erased. The Vraxis Syndicate, an unseen enemy. When the dropships descended, the battlefield was already a graveyard. The colony world, HFY, had been a peaceful farming planet just weeks ago. Now, smoke, fire, blood. The Rutherian forces were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and barely holding the line. And the Vraxis Syndicate. No one had ever heard of them before. Yet, somehow, they were tearing through some of the best warriors in the galaxy. Sam crouched behind the wreckage of a fallen assault walker, plasma fire screaming past his head. Mia was next to him, clutching a stolen rifle, her breathing sharp and controlled. Connor had set up explosives along the trench line, using makeshift traps to slow enemy advances. They had barely been on the ground for an hour, and already they were losing. "This isn't a skirmish," Mia muttered, reloading. "This is extermination." And she was right. Because the Vraxis Syndicate didn't fight like anyone else. They didn't use standard battle formations. They didn't fall back. They just kept coming. Like they were testing the humans. Like they were studying them. And Sam had a sinking feeling that they weren't just fighting for territory. They were fighting for answers. The trap is sprung. By nightfall, the battle had reached a breaking point. The Rutherians had lost more than half their forces. The humans were pinned down, low on ammo, exhausted. And that was when the Dominion arrived. But not to help. They came to watch. A fleet of Dominion warships hovered in the upper atmosphere, transmitting a live feed of the battle to the entire Galactic Council. This wasn't just a war. It was a demonstration. Either the humans won, proving their value, or they died, proving they had been a mistake. There was no backup coming. No reinforcements. It was just them against an enemy they knew nothing about. And the only way out was through. The strategy no one saw coming. It was Sam who made the call. "We don't fight them head-on," he said, crawling toward the remaining human squad members. "We use their tactics against them." Mia frowned. "What do you mean?" Sam's eyes were sharp, focused. "They're studying us, right? They're trying to figure out how we fight. So, we changed the way we fight." And that was when the humans did something the Vraxis Syndicate never expected. They vanished. The ghost soldiers of HFY. Humans weren't the strongest. They weren't the fastest. But they were the most unpredictable species the galaxy had ever encountered. Instead of engaging in open warfare, the human cadets dispersed into the ruins of the colony. They turned the battlefield into a hunting ground. They used ambush tactics. They used decoys. They used psychological warfare, broadcasting distorted human voices across the enemy's communication lines, making it seem like they were everywhere at once. And for the first time in the battle, the Vraxis forces hesitated. They weren't afraid of the Rutherians. They weren't afraid of the Dominion. But they were afraid of what they didn't understand. and they didn't understand humans. The turning point. By dawn, the battlefield was silent. The Vraxis forces had withdrawn, not because they were losing, but because they had gotten their answer. They had seen what humans could do, and they had decided not to push their luck. The aftermath. A message to the stars. The Dominion ships left immediately. The moment it became clear the humans had survived, they had no more interest in the battle. Because the point had been made. Humans weren't just capable of war. They were dangerous. And now, every empire in the galaxy knew it. But Sam, standing among the ruins of HFY, knew something even worse. This wasn't over. The Vraxis hadn't retreated out of fear. They had left because they had learned everything they needed to know, which meant only one thing. They would be back. And next time, they wouldn't be looking for answers. They would be looking for blood. A legacy written in the stars. A galaxy forever changed. It had been 7 days since the Battle of HFY. 7 days since the Vraxis syndicate disappeared without a trace. 7 days since the Dominion broadcasted the battle to every major power in the galaxy. Now, the war-torn colony world was silent, its once thriving cities reduced to charred rubble. The air was thick with the scent of burning metal and plasma residue, and the survivors, both human and alien, were left wondering what had just happened. Because something had changed. Something fundamental. The galaxy had always been a place of order, of structure. Empires rose, wars were fought, and power was always held by the ancient, dominant species. But now the humans had forced themselves into the equation, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The consequences of victory. The human cadets were summoned back to the Galactic Council's war assembly. They weren't being brought back as students. They weren't even being treated as soldiers. They were something else now, something far more dangerous. They were symbols, symbols of something that no empire, no dominion, no military strategist had ever accounted for. The rise of humanity. A divided council. The council chamber on Vrix-9 was more crowded than ever. Every major civilization had sent high-ranking diplomats, generals, and intelligence officers, not because they wanted to reward the humans, but because they needed to decide what to do with them. The argument for elimination. High Chancellor Varkol, leader of the Zurith Dominion, was the first to speak. We have witnessed their potential. We have seen what they are capable of. And I say this not as a politician, but as a survivor of war. He turned, his compound eyes narrowing as he stared at the 10 human cadets. They are dangerous. They adapt faster than any species in recorded history. They do not fight like us. They do not fear like us. And if we do not act now, they will surpass us. A murmur rippled through the council. A few representatives nodded. Others looked uncertain. Because Varkol wasn't wrong. The humans had just done something that had never been done before. And if they could do it once, they could do it again. The argument for acceptance. Commander Zelrath stood next. She had fought beside the humans. She had seen them bleed, seen them struggle, seen them survive against impossible odds. And now she was looking at the same council that had once laughed at the idea of humans being anything more than diplomats. She stepped forward, her reptilian eyes sharp. You say they are dangerous. Good. We need dangerous. Silence. Zelrath turned, sweeping her gaze across the room. For too long, we have been at the mercy of forces beyond our control. The Dominion, the syndicates, the unknown threats lurking beyond the edge of explored space. She pointed toward the humans. These cadets have proven that humanity does not break. They do not run. They do not surrender. They fight until the end. And if you are wise, you will not see that as a threat. You will see it as an opportunity. The chamber erupted into debate. The vote that followed was split. Some wanted the humans removed, their military status revoked, their future in the galactic community controlled. Others saw what Selarath saw. A species that could turn the tide of war. A species that could redefine history. And when the final vote was cast, the decision was clear. The humans were not only permitted to remain in the academy. They were to be given their own task force. An elite unit. A new kind of warrior. The first of their kind. The first human special forces unit. The humans were taken to a classified military station, orbiting a dead world at the edge of the galaxy. It was there that they were given their new ranks. New weapons, new training. But most importantly, a new mission. They weren't just cadets anymore. They weren't even soldiers. They were something more. A rapid response force designed to handle threats no other species could. They were assigned to Black Ops missions, deep space reconnaissance, high-risk engagements against unknown enemy forces. And they were given a name. The Phantom Corps. A unit built on the principles of survival, adaptation, and human unpredictability. A unit that would operate in the shadows, striking from places no enemy expected. A unit that would become the most feared force in the galaxy. Because now, the humans had been given power. And they were about to prove why that was the most dangerous mistake the galaxy had ever made. The final warning. The Dominion had failed to eliminate them. The syndicates had failed to break them. The Council had failed to contain them. And across the stars, the whispers spread once more. This time, they weren't whispers of doubt. This time, they were warnings. Warnings that spread from one system to another, passed through the ranks of every military force in the known universe. A warning that would be remembered for centuries. If you go to war, be ready for anything. Be ready for the unexpected. Because the humans are out there. And the humans do not lose. Epilogue. The future of humanity. Sam Carter stood on the bridge of the Phantom Corps' first warship. It wasn't large, it wasn't powerful, but it was fast, stealthy, and built for one purpose: war in the shadows. Behind him, Mia adjusted her battle armor, now reinforced with lightweight alloys. Connor was modifying a prototype energy weapon, his eyes glinting with excitement. Emma was scanning intercepted transmissions, already analyzing the next mission. They weren't just kids anymore. They weren't just cadets. They were soldiers. And they were about to carve their names into history. Sam took one last look at the endless void of space. Then he turned to his crew, his voice steady. Time to show the galaxy what humans can really do. And with that, the Phantom Corps disappeared into hyperspace. Their legacy had only just begun. The end.